Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Now join me on today's video where I will be reviewing another watch from NOVE. Now if you guys remember, the last watch I reviewed from this boutique Swiss brand was the Trident model. Now that Trident model blew me away in terms of how that watch was built and the overall feel, but it lacked major functionality. Now in the video I did mention the model that I'm actually talking about today as being a more wrist-friendly or more everyday style of watch, and therefore I did get in touch with NOVE and they happily sent out the Modena for me to review. However, this watch will have to go back to NOVE after I have finished with the review, but I have had it for long enough in order for me to get my hands all over this and give it a really good testing and a thorough review. So today allow me to give you the ins and outs on another very striking looking watch from NOVE. Now one of the things I do really love about NOVE and I'm starting to really appreciate is the fact that the branding and the whole design aesthetic really does shine through to the watches. And I really like watch brands that do stamp their identity across through to the watch, and you can see it within the core and the DNA of pretty much each and every watch. So this Modena is actually no different. As you can see, we've got some really striking looks. Yeah, the design is absolutely fantastic. That's something you cannot deny. It is very refreshing and quite modern. But this watch also does have some drawbacks, which I will cover in a lot more detail. So first off, let's start off with some specifications. We do have a full construction of 316L stainless steel. We do have a double dome AR coated sapphire crystal on the front and also a double dome sapphire crystal at the rear of the watch. The watch does give us 200 meters of water resistance. You've got a screw down case back and a screw down crown, and the watch runs the Swiss Ronda R150 25 jewel movement. This watch actually isn't a clone of the ETA 2824, but it does have similar dimensions, if not exactly the same. The rated accuracy of this watch is around plus or minus 12 seconds a day. This watch has been running around 7 seconds a day. I've got a 0 beat error, a decent enough amplitude. And what I find with these Swiss movements or these Swiss clone movements, that is they are far more stable going through different rotations and positions throughout the day. Now the movement itself actually comes from Ronda, and they actually regulate this to 2 positions before they release it from the factory. Now in terms of the rated accuracy, as I stated, it's around plus or minus 12 seconds a day. These kind of specs and numbers do seem quite familiar with the Sellita SW200 and also the PT5000 from China. Now the power reserve of this watch is 40 hours, which is quite a decent power reserve, but the movement manufacturers do recommend that you wear this watch for a minimum of 12 hours a day. If it is worn any less than that, you need to hand wind. Now the price of this watch is around $670, but the fantastic thing is you do get around a 3-year warranty, which is, normally you get 2 years, and for NOVE to give you another year on a Swiss movement as well, it does give you great peace of mind. So let me give you a quick overview of the dimensions of the watch. As I stated earlier on, that this watch is a bit more wrist friendly and everyday friendly over the Trident. That Trident had some pretty crazy dimensions. So you've got a diameter of 44 millimeters across, a overall depth of 12.5 millimeters. Bearing in mind you've got 2 double dome sapphire crystals. You've got a dome crystal at the top and a dome crystal at the bottom. A lug to lug of 45.5 millimeters. And you also got a 24 millimeter lug width, an overall weight of around 175 grams. Now on the lug to lug, it will slightly increase because you've got sort of semi female end links where you've got a great enough curvature on the lugs. However, they don't fully fold over, which gives you an overall sort of lug width at 55 millimeters, but as you'll see later on, it does fit quite well on a smaller wrist due to that curvature, I think, which is enough for it to fit over pretty small wrist, I'd say. And the bracelet, while it does have a wide lug to lug, it does taper down ever so slightly to 22 millimeters. And let me get this cleaned up, get my gloves on, and give you a thorough, detailed overview of the Modena by NOVE. Before I go into more detail, let me give you guys a wrist shot. On wrist, I am wearing my Seiko Saab 33. Now, as I said at the start of the video, that what I do love about NOVE is, of course, their brand identity. It ties in with their name, and you can see the whole ethos going throughout the whole watch range and on every watch design. And I like that identity. Now, another thing which I do like is a themed watch. You guys know that if you're a long-term subscriber of this channel, I so appreciate that. Now, NOVE, while designing this watch, have decided to put a heavily automotive sports car influence mixed with this modern design. I have to say, I absolutely love how they've incorporated that sports car design element seamlessly into a watch to make it look modern, and it actually doesn't stand out to you straight away when you look at the watch. Only when you actually read Nove's website and the features I'm going to highlight to you does it actually start to make sense. So let's start off with the dial. The dial has got these straight lines across, which is supposed to represent a heat sink or a radiator of a car engine. Now this is where they've added their own touch to modernize it and give it a luxurious appeal, because look at that finishing on the dial. While you've got these straight lines, you've also got this gorgeous sunburst champagne, slightly beige color. Now what they've done with that sunburst effect is it also gives you this fume style look. As you can see, that champagne or brown, whatever color you want to go with, does tend to darken as the light reflects off the dial, and as it goes around the edges it does go into a dark brown or bit of a black. So I really like that visual you get off the dial. Just so many different shades and colors are present when you turn this watch around, and when you wear it on wrist it just catches so many different shades. The second feature which I'm going to show you now is looking at this bezel. Now the bezel represents a brake disc, which I think is quite cool actually, and the sides, these crown guards, also represent brake calipers. Again, another very thoughtful touch. So there is a logic to the design. It isn't just put together or drawn by somebody who, I don't know, sitting there thinking how contemporary and, you know, crazy can I get. Now let me bring it back to the dial before we move on to the rest of the features. You've got this silver applied hour markers, you know, and they do look like little beads, which you'll find either on luxury leather seats on a car, or just, you know, nice luxury studs or little features that you get in these top rated supercars. You've also got this applied logo polished in the center of the dial. You've got a beveled frame at the 3 o'clock with a date window, and you've got this nice red just above the 6 and just below that Swiss made, and just to add that slight prestige that is associated with Swiss made being branded on the dial. But unfortunately that is where it stops. The biggest qualm, let's say, I had with the Nova Trident was the lack of functionality. Yes, while the watch is quite contemporary and minimalist, for me as a serious watch guy, in order for me to wear a watch, I do need the watch to have some sort of functionality present. And you know, this is where unfortunately on the dial, that minimalist look, where I think will turn off a lot of people. It definitely does turn me off when I don't see any minute markers, a chapter ring. I do need to be able to track the time and in fact set it accurately. Whether or not, you know, the watch maintains accurate time, that's a different story, and we know that's part and parcel with automatic watches. But yeah, definitely do need some hour markers. But not only that, I think they could have gone a step above and stuck to the whole theme and that mission goal that they're trying to achieve. Maybe incorporating some markers onto the actual bezel definitely needs some added functionality in order for, I think, a lot of people to take it quite serious. Of course, there's people out there that won't mind that. I mean, I know quite a few people actually enjoy watches without those minute markers and tracks. They're not that particular. But for me to set that time, I definitely need it. I find it so difficult to get past. And yeah, I think this is where Nova have missed a trick. Another thing they could have definitely done, and I pointed this out on the Trident, is the actual proportions of those hands. The hour and the minute hand are okay, to be fair. It's just that seconds hand needs to be just a touch longer. Seconds hand, highly polished. This is where my next kind of design issue comes in. That needs to be improved on legibility. It is a needle style handset, so I think they could have gone a step further with this dial and made it and added a bit more of that automotive influence by perhaps changing the color, maybe making it a red. That would have really helped it stand out. And they could have used some speedometer or race car dash elements to the dial and maybe made it a slight racing dial. I think this is where they could have added those minute markers and sort of done something, you know, in terms of that on the dial to really mix up that race car theme against a modern designed watch. We will look at the loom a bit later on, but I gotta say there's not much to look at. It's only the hands that are loomed. I might show that to you guys right now. So you can see the loom, it is very minimal. Only the hour and the minute hand is actually loomed. As I stated, the functionality is really missing. You know, even though you've got Swiss Super Lumen Nova applied to the handset, you don't know really where it is. You don't know what the time is. It just looks kind of pretty, but I think it would look prettier if at least the hour markers were loomed or there was other things present on the dial. So that's where we stand with the loom. Not much really going on and a bit ineffective as there's not much functionality there. So now continuing with that sports car theme, I already spoke briefly about the bezel. I've got to say it is brushed very nicely in a circular fashion, and you've got these nice little ridges cut out in there, polished, giving it some really nice accents on the bezel. However, I really do wish it was rotating, because, you know, as I've had this watch in hand, just checking it out before I did the review, I tried to rotate it. I really wanted that functionality in there, because I think that would have made it look twice as cool with these sort of brake calipers present. And I really think this bezel is too plain. They should have done something with it, maybe made it a GMT style with a dual time zone on there, put like the dial hour markers on there if need be, or a minute track around there. It's just too plain, and I really would have loved if they had made it rotate. I think that really would have worked in their favor and made this watch stand out and give it that much needed functionality. Let's go down to the watch case and just have a look at this absolutely crazy watch case. I love all these little features, all the details present, and it's a mixture of brushing and polishing all over this watch. So we look at the lugs first and foremost. Let me try and point you to some sort of direction. As you can see that the lugs are skeletonized, slightly hollow. Now, if you try to get your head around that, you'll totally sort of understand and appreciate that level of build quality and design actually gone into this. And these are meant to be air intakes, so not only along the side can you see it is hollow, you can also see a gap on the where the lugs actually sit. On the side of the watch opposite to the crown, you'll also see this little circle here, this emblem with the NOVE logo printed on the side. And these are features that you do see on luxury cars. You'll see the branding stamped across various parts of the car, just to give it that added prestige. And also along the side where the crown is, you've got a very nicely knurled crown, and this is where they have retained some functionality. That crown is gorgeous, really nice logo on the end, but in terms of actually functioning, great amount of knurling. I'm wearing these gloves and I really find, you know, adjusting crowns quite difficult with these on, but with this, not a problem. Very solid, very nice positive pops, and then when you do screw it in, absolutely perfect. You know, just it's almost like it's threadless. You don't feel the threads catching, and it just screws in so nice with no grittiness. And great size as well, good fit within those crown guards, which are the brake calipers. And yeah, I am a massive fan of how it looks. But you know, when you do think about it, it is such a shame if they're just missing just small tweaks and features. And I'm not even talking about the, you know, so-called improvements that I've mentioned on the design. I'm just talking about just basic markers. I think that one particular thing would have really helped make this watch just be a bit more functional. And let's turn the watch to the back and let's show you the case back. Again, very similar to the Trident, and I think the sapphire crystal may be slightly tinted because you've got a slightly darkened hue to the back of the case. I like the NOVE logo printed on the actual rotor, and you've got just specifications dotted around. Very nice, very formal. I mean, that is still pretty nice to look at. Now, moving on to the bracelet, another wow point on this watch. I just really like how it's made. You've got these H links, but I also like to look at them like sort of turtle links. You've got these center links within present, which are highly polished, looks like a turtle shell, or you can look at it maybe like a tire off a car. But the build quality is so nice, very smooth, satinized brushing, high polished surfaces, but you can see just, you know, all these grubby marks and just some micro scratches, which definitely will happen to this watch, no doubt. And on the reverse of the bracelet, you can actually see those links are fully solid. You've got solid end links, which are held together by 2 screws on the lug. But what holds the links together is a split pin design. Now, a lot of people are torn between split pins, and I've heard quite a lot of people just really, you know, just really don't like the idea of split pins. I find them quite practical. I find them quite easy to remove links from watches. You just simply press it in and just go ahead and replace it and put the split pin back in. Now, also, they are quite cheap to replace. You know, it's always good to have a box of split pins lying around. But yeah, I don't know if they make the watch any cheaper. Yes, it would have been nice to have screw-in links, but you know, that gives you other set of problems. But again, they are still easy. And the only reason I would want screw-in links on this bracelet is due to the cost of the watch. It is around $670, you know, around the 500 or £550 mark. So I just want it purely because of that, because I'd like to see that level of quality on a bracelet that I'm paying that much money for. But split pins are okay. What can happen is if you don't use the watch for a while, the split pins can start to possibly rust or disintegrate or get quite stiff. So you've got to use the right tools to actually get them out. And you know, they're quite easy to bend, so you can have a whole bunch of problems aside from that. Now, moving on to the clasp, same as the Trident, you've got that male female fitment present on this butterfly clasp, and I really do like that. It gives it a very seamless finish. Just have a look at that, really nice. Great logo on the back, again in line with the design and theme of the watch. I don't mind butterfly clasps, you know, there are different qualities and grades available to them. This is not flimsy at all, and like I said, I've got no issue with that, and I do like that seamless fit. So let's get this watch on wrist. So here's the NOVE. Squeaky fucking chair. So here's the NOVE Modena on my 6.5 inch wrist, and like I said at the start of the video, guys, the fit is absolutely perfect on a 6.5 inch wrist. It isn't oversized at all, even though you haven't got female end links and the bracelet doesn't fully articulate across. Yeah, just look at that fit. You know, 44mm in diameter, not a problem. That's just a Seiko turtle. 12.5mm thick only. Gives it a really nice fit on the wrist, and that lug to lug is just spot on, and it looks a lot better, bit more of a daily watch. And you know, it's got that modern styling, which, you know, if you want to wear it out and about, you can absolutely wear this. So I think they've got a lot of things right on this watch. I think it's, again, a more of a daily watch, and it should appeal to a lot more people. Now, in terms of positives, I love pretty much all the aesthetics that you can see. I definitely love the branding. I love the design input. I love that crossover between sports cars and watches. Now, those two are like deep passions of mine. I'm always surrounded by performance cars, and you know, of course, I like watches. So I really like how they've kind of amalgamated the two together, made the designs crossover really well. Now, but again, similar criticism as to the Trident, that functionality has just been taken away. You know, the dial is absolutely beautiful. You know, no one can deny that. That sunburst effect, the different colors and gradients you get, those straight lines, those silver beads, it looks great. But I just can't get over minute markers. I never have been able to on any watch. You know, that design, that fit and finish, that quality is present throughout this watch. Handling it, there are no sharp edges. Everything has been brushed perfectly well. You've got really good quality of materials, great level of finishing, you know, that Swiss made, stamped on the dial, a really good movement, 3 years warranty. What can you say? You do get a lot for that 500 odd pounds or $670. But so again, you want that functionality there present as well. I think not a lot to criticize about this watch, but what there is to criticize is quite important, going back again to that function. So, you know, that's it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed that review. Let me know your thoughts on this watch within the comment section below. A huge thank you to NOVE for sending this Modena in. Now I shall return this watch. So once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.